Hello, this is Mary Claire Ashcroft. I am a professional rebel, happiness ninja, and moment capturing goddess, and you're listening to Just Stay Curious.
Hi, this is Gillian Rose, your host on Just Stay Curious. We're talking to amazing women around the world who are sharing their heroine's journey and empowering other women to take control of their own stories, the ups, downs, and everything in between. Visit juststaycurious.com to learn more. Okay, dreamers, it's time to get curious. Today we are talking to an amazing woman. I'm excited to introduce my guest today, Mary Claire Ashcroft. Mary Claire is a happiness ninja. She helps people find their happy, have more fun in life, and have the confidence to be themselves. Yes. I'm jumping over here. This is so exciting. Mary Claire, thank you so much for coming onto the show and talking with us today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So what you do sounds so amazing. So if you can take 1 minute or 2 minutes and kind of fill us in on the personal details of how you became this happiness ninja.
Sure, no problem. Well, I actually, despite what people seem to think, I spent about 30 years of my life, and I'm only 35, I spent 30 years of my life struggling with low self-esteem, which led to depression. And the depression was actually hiding anxiety, which I didn't realize I, was living with. And yeah, I sort of lived my life looking, because I had such bad view of myself. I just looked at what other people wanted me to do all my life, and I knew I was a rebel at heart, but I just kept doing what I thought I should do and what other people expected of me, until one day I couldn't feel anything anymore. I literally just closed up. I couldn't feel sadness. I couldn't feel happiness, and that's not really any way to live. So I decided to go on a bit of a mission of self-discovery, find out who I was and where my happiness was hiding, and it took a couple of years. I came to realize that what comes naturally to me is spreading joy, and I realized I was spreading it for everyone else and not myself. So yeah, I became a happiness ninja because I actually worked out where my happiness was hiding, and since then I can kind of see it, the struggles that other people have. I just want to help.
Nice.
So yeah, that's how I became a happiness ninja. And I don't give myself normal job titles, so yeah.
No need to. Why should you? To call yourself what you want. So let's go ahead and get into your story. So I want to start pre-happiness ninja, if you will, a time in your life when you didn't have the joy or the happiness. If you can walk us through that time in your life and really, if you can, get back into that headspace and tell us, what were you thinking? How were you feeling? And what was going on at one particular point in your life?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, for all of my life, I really didn't connect with who I was. Yeah, I just basically, growing up, most people's parents argue growing up. And one day, one of the arguments got a little bit too out of hand, and I couldn't deal with it. And it just made me have a very messed up view of, when you're a child, you make up beliefs of the world, even though you've got a really naive, childish head.
Yeah.
So I believed, and this isn't me like slating my parents. I've got a really great relationship with them, both of them. But just because I was 5 years old, I started to believe that my dad didn't love me because he wasn't about, and when he was about, he was quite angry. And I also believed that my mum, who was obviously very sort of upset that he wasn't about, she'd overcompensate and smother me with love. And so I just got into my head that love was never given genuinely. I just thought it was given out of pity. And so I just grew up with this belief, and it took me 30 years to realize underneath that every decision I made, whether it was high school, whether it was primary school, whether it was friendships, whether it was boyfriends, anything, even to get a job, I just thought, well, I'm not worth very much, so I'll I'll just spend my life doing what other people expect me to do. Try and hide and blend in. It was really weird because inside I knew that I was meant to be more, and I had a really rebellious heart. But I didn't think, oh well, who am I to, stand out? I'm not as cool as the artistic kids. Nobody would want to be in a band with me. No boys would even want to kiss me. I just really had this story going on in my head, would tell me that I was just the most worthless, horrible person. So I was just constantly in this battle in my own head. I couldn't even think what I wanted to be when I grew up. Just constantly, every decision. And then I didn't realize that this was anxiety. It took me until about 6 months ago to actually go, oh, this voice and repetitive voice and feeling in my body is anxiety. And just the constantly, you're not good enough. Who do you think you are? Nobody's going to bother with you. And it was just this whole woe is me sad story in my head. But at the same time, I didn't want to, bring other people down. So I just put on a mask that I was happy and I was there for everybody else. And yeah, it was just horrible, because I thought, well, nobody likes a sad sack, and I'm less likely to have any friends if I let them know the real me. So I just sort of projected this one part of me that people liked, which was what other people could see of me, this happy, smiley, joy-spreading, smiley person, but just I couldn't see who she was until recently. So yeah.
I think what you did was amazing. I mean, I can't imagine the time and the inner work that you must have done for this, but you looked at a story you were telling yourself and then went back and pinpointed when it began. And
yeah,
I think if a lot of us did that, I think a lot of us are very similar, that our current stories go back to when we were kids.
mm-hmm.
And if we stop and think about it, and like, I'm 30 years old, living my life based on something that happened to me when I was 7.
Yeah.
Like,
and you can't blame yourself because you've got such a naive point of view and
right.
experience. Everything, is just, maybe you just know your bedroom and your school and your parents, and then you've just made this whole opinion of the whole world. And
Yeah. And I think that it's so important what you did, to look at it and find the origin, because that did that put things in perspective for you?
Yeah, it was like literally like everything just fell into place. Every decision I made, from how I related to boys and how I would never keep friends for very long, or I'd close myself up because I never thought I was worth getting to know. Yeah, everything, to the jobs that I chose, and in how little I pushed myself, or I'd push myself and then I'd self-sabotage, and it's just like, oh wow, really. And it's and the sort of advice I can give to you is not to then go, oh, I've wasted my life. It's like, oh, everything makes sense now, so I can actually make the effort and not fix it, because you can't, everything that happened to you happened for a reason, and it just makes you stronger. So, from now on, everything makes sense and I don't feel lost anymore.
Do you remember when this started to become clear to you?
Well, basically what happened was I went self-employed about 5 years ago. I left my grown-up job, as I called it, and set up a photography company. And I realized that setting up a business is the most spiritual thing you can ever do, because you learn so much about yourself. Mm-hmm. You have to wear every different hat at the start because you don't have the budget to pay people, and you really you have to work through your weaknesses and your strengths, and you actually have to put your sort of value out there on the line, because selling photographs was my creation, and if it was just a really vulnerable thing for me to do. And because I had this, I don't trust what I'm doing, I was constantly again looking what other business people, what other photographers were doing. And I took some time out after my grandma passed away. And I just took some money I saved and ran off to New York City for a couple of weeks. And I had a great time. And it wasn't until I had to board the plane home that I had a breakdown over a cup of tea at the airport. And it just made me realize how unhappy and how I'd been living life for everyone else. You know, I wanted my customers to like me, I wanted my friends to like me, and I just realized I was just doing everything for everyone else. And it just made me realize that when I came back, that I just couldn't feel anything anymore. I was just sort of, I was used to not feeling happy, but then all of a sudden I couldn't feel sad anymore. I'd just completely closed up, built a wall, and was marching on, like pushing. And it was just, hang on, this is no way to live life. So yeah, it was then I decided to go digging and go on a backwards adventure and work out what was going on.
Mm. And for you, what were some of the very first steps that you took to find your happiness?
Well, for me, I mean, it's quite distinct, and I'm writing a book about it. You know, basically, the first thing that I realized was during a meditation, and I'd never really meditated before, but I heard it was a good thing to do, and it would connect you to yourself. And so I signed up for a 21-day meditation challenge because I thought, well, 21 days, it's the perfect time to start a habit. And a couple of days into it, I could just feel what felt like, I mean, I was lying on my sofa and it felt like a 5-year-old child was sitting on my chest as I was meditating. I was like, oh, I feel really tight and just like this pressure. And because I was an inexperienced meditator, I was like, right, I've got to meditate this out. And I was really concentrating on it, trying to push it out, which is just totally the wrong thing to do. I wasn't allowing, and I was just ruining like the next few days worth of meditation, going, right, force this feeling out. Looking back, it's so stupid. But after the time ran out, and then I was carrying on with my day-to-day life, I realized that this feeling was just, it was there all the time.
Mm.
And I started thinking, hang on, have I just had this tenseness feeling in my chest the whole time and not realized it? And I thought, no, that's stupid. I'm making that up. But then the more I thought of it, and it wouldn't go away. So just intuitively, one day I put my hand on my heart and just went, it hurts. And I don't know what happened or what it was, but I did the ugliest, snottiest, most disgusting cry, like it was, emotional baggage. I had literally just unpacked my first case.
Mm.
And then I realized, after that, I felt like a ton lighter. And I thought, wow, I actually feel lighter than I have ever before. And so then, that was my sort of first step in connecting to the sort of signs that your body gives you, like your emotions are like GPS as to what's going on. So yeah, that was my first step.
Do you think that without meditation, you would have discovered this weight upon yourself?
I'm sure I would have found it another way. I'm sure, the journey that I'm on is, I believe that everyone's doing the best that they can. So if I was meant to be on this path, then I'm sure I would have found it either via journaling or having a big hug, being hormonal and emotional. I don't know, but I think that for me was how I noticed it the most.
Mm. Looking back at this time in your life, what is the biggest kind of like gem that you got out of it?
Well, if we're looking at, your theme is self-love, and for me, sort of knowing and accepting who you are is basically, it's the key to happiness, core, at your very base happiness. I think, once you accept everything about yourself and look after who you are, that is happiness. And that's kind of what I try and promote.
Mm. Let's talk about another time in your life, and maybe it's related, maybe it's not, but a time that you had a moment of clarity or just a time when you realized what your path was going to be.
Well, it's quite funny actually, because I didn't realize it at the time. I was in London visiting some friends, and we'd just been to a flea market, and we were walking back to the train station, and a guy stopped me. He was like quite tall black guy with massive dreadlocks and a Jamaican accent, and he stopped and looked at me and went, I won't try and do the accent because I'm terrible, but he said, I don't want to insult anyone, but he said, oh, she a princess. She sprinkle fairy dust everywhere she go. And I just burst out laughing, and I said to my friends, oh, awesome, I've met the local crazy guy. And the people who were with me were like, no, he's a prophet. He doesn't talk to anybody. He was quite well known, and he stopped and sort of acknowledged me. And I just thought, oh, cool, I'm a princess. And I thought nothing of it because I was still, kind of in the height of sort of my depression, but masking it quite well. And then sort of as I worked on, who I was and what my strengths were and the sort of impact that I have on people, I sort of, the penny dropped again, like, oh, this guy who doesn't normally speak to anyone kind of sees what I do as a happiness ninja. I go around. Sometimes I wear a tiara for fun. And yeah, I like to spread joy and sprinkle magic, and that's kind of what I do. So that for me was like, oh wow.
That's such a cool story. I can like imagine. I was in London last summer, so I'm like imagining this happening by my hotel, but obviously not.
But yeah, he was awesome, especially sort of seeing my friend's reaction and just like, oh no, he's not, a regular guy or a crazy. He's a prophet, and he just, he's obviously well known in the area. And he stopped and gave me a few seconds of his time. So
that is so cool. And it was like also like meant to be that your friends were with you, because this could have happened. You could have been walking by yourself. He would have said that and you would have been like, oh, crazy.
I mean, it was nice crazy, because there's plenty of crazy guys who were saying much worse. But yeah, I would have just thought, what a crazy guy. But their reaction sort of must have just planted a seed.
Mm. So one thing that I want to ask you is, first off, I love that you go about with tiara. But secondly, we live in a world where people take themselves quite seriously. I get caught up in it all the time. I just get so serious. And, when you're in that serious mindset and you see someone with a tiara and you're like, ah, what is it? What is that woman doing? And I don't mean that in an insulting way, but I want to know, how do you continue to just spread that joy and keep on showing up when other people might not be in that energetic space to accept your such high vibe energy?
Well, it goes back to when I was a teenager. Even though I was stuck in my own head with the anxiety and not feeling great about myself. At a core level, I knew I was different and that I would never fit in. So, being a rebellious teenager, I made it as, I knew no one was going to accept me, so I just pushed myself as, punky with bright red hair. I got my nose pierced, my eyebrow pierced, and dressed in baggy skater clothes, when all the other girls were doing girly makeup things. So I kind of always was used to looking different and sort of, not being accepted in that way. But now I accept myself that way. But it's kind of funny, because I'll go into a shop or a store, and somebody will say, "Oh, is it your birthday?" Because they'll see me wearing a tiara. And I'll be like, "No, I'm just a princess."
Nice.
And, they either love it or they hate it. I mean, I don't know if you have something called Marmite over where you are, but it's kind of this sandwich spread that we have over here, and the advert is you'll either love it or hate it, and I think that's basically my marketing.
Oh, that's awesome. So now that you've embraced this persona or just this attitude of spreading joy and being this happiness ninja, what is one core belief that really shapes your life now?
I try and believe now that life is working in your favor, that, from the sort of penny drop moments that I've had in my life so far, whatever seemed to be a struggle was, I was meant to go through that to become stronger, or it was a lesson, or, if I made friends with somebody I wasn't meant to make friends with. It's just like, the lesson keeps repeating until you get it. So I totally believe that life is working in your favor. It's either a success or a lesson.
Hey dreamers, I want to take a moment to tell you about something that has changed my life. I started using the Pray Rain Journal technique before I even knew what it was. It combines so many things we're all already using in a powerful way. Visualization, positive thinking, and the law of attraction to bring our goals to life. To buy the book, go to juststaycurious.com/prayrain. If you're ready to turn your dreams into a plan, go to juststaycurious.com/prayrain to learn more. You'll also get the free audiobook and 1 year of accountability emails. Check out juststaycurious.com/prayrain today. All right, Mary Claire, it's time for our daily insights, the Q&A part of the show. Sound good?
Okay.
Why is self-love important to you?
Sorry, you broke up at my end then.
Oh, sorry. Why is self-love important to you?
Well, self-love is important to me because it's about taking that time for yourself, and like I said already, it's about sort of knowing and accepting you as you are, with your flaws, with your perfections, your everything that, because to me self-love is happiness.
And if you can think of what is the one core reason that was preventing you from accepting self-love?
The one core reason, I guess it was just complete lack of worth. I closed up to myself completely and worried about everybody else until, it kind of caught up with me.
Who is one person who has changed your life for the better?
That would be Matt, my other half. He kind of refused to take this closed up person, and he chipped away brick by brick to get the little shiny person on the inside.
What is the best advice you've received?
Well, it wasn't given as advice. It was given as a complete teardown. It was my photography tutor. He just instantly saw through my mask and just publicly shamed me, but it was for my own good to sort of stop pretending to be somebody I wasn't.
Can I ask, what did he say to you?
It probably involves swearing, so I won't say it, but he just told me to drop the effing mask.
Oh, wow.
Be yourself. Yeah, he's an old punk, and so he was very direct, but it was kind of tough love, and I needed it.
What is your favorite self-care habit?
Well, it's something that I teach in my Academy of Awesome, which I'll tell you about later, and it's called Start Your Day with a Yay. And it is just making sure you do something positive in the morning, whether that's a thought or a bit of time to yourself before you think about anyone else. But there's lots of different things you can do, but it's called Start Your Day with a Yay.
Do you have a favorite quote?
Do I have a favorite quote? I have lots, but one that I've sort of picked for this is, you cannot protect yourself from sadness without protecting yourself from happiness. And that's by Jonathan Safran Foer.
Can you share with us a resource, an app, or some kind of tool that we can use in our own self-care practice?
Yeah, sure. I use something called the Lotus Bell meditation. Hang on, let me make sure I've got the words the right way around. Sorry. It's called the Lotus Bell, Lotus Bud, sorry. And it's just something that chimes at sporadic times during the day, and you can use it to just pull yourself back into the present moment, or you can just use it to sort of snap out of any stinky thinky, or it's great. It just pings every so often, just to pull you back out of your head.
So it's a random thing?
Completely random, yes.
Okay. And it just reminds you, like, take a breath, be in the moment.
Yeah, either take a breath or, because sometimes, I don't know, for example, you might be doing the washing up and your head's gone into angry argument with nobody who's in the room. So it's like, oh yes, and back again.
Nice. Very cool. What book are you reading right now?
I am reading The Universe Has Your Back by Gabrielle Bernstein. Or Bernstein, I don't know how you say
it. Awesome. I'm in the middle of that book as well. Anybody who's listening to the podcast will say that I've been saying that since it came out, and that's true. I've been in the middle of it since it's come out.
Well, I always have about 3 books on the go, but yeah, I thought, I'd say that one for your listeners.
And I do have an offer for anyone who's listening. They can get a free audio version of that book, or any book they want, by going to juststaycurious.com/freebook.
Cool.
For an audio version. Mary Claire, one final question for you today. What is the one thing you are most passionate about?
Living true to your soul. Yeah, no, not living a life of shoulds and have to.
Yes. Nice.
Yay.
All right, all you dreamers out there, you can find links to these resources and everything else we've been chatting about in today's episode by going to juststaycurious.com/Mary Claire Ashcroft. Mary Claire, thank you for opening up, sharing your journey with us. Can you give our dreamers a last parting message, share the best way we can find you, and then we'll say goodbye?
Sure. Yeah, I have a website. It's www.happiness.ninja. And that's my website. You can find out a little bit more about my story and the ways I work with people, sort of the events that I do and things that I speak at. And I'd love to share with you something that's relaunching in January. And it's called the Academy of Awesome. It's starting in the middle of January, but it will be kept open so people can pop along. And it's a membership site. It's about spreading joy, and it's about sort of stepping out of your own head. I think we discussed it earlier about how we become very serious and internal. And I think the more internalized we are and trapped in our own sort of negative vortex, the more sort of insular we are. So it's about sort of stepping outside of that negative thought pattern and looking at your strengths and not your weaknesses, and actually doing little things to make the world a better place. Obviously one person can't change the world, but if everybody's doing more kind things and spreading a bit of joy and just generally looking to, have a happier life, it's just, it's my Academy of Awesome, just helping people feel better about themselves and spreading a little magic. So that is starting. So there is a link to that on the website. Yeah, I just want to hope that everyone has a fantastic 2017, because I know 2016's not been great for some of us.
All the best. 2017. It's going to be a great year.
It will be.
Mary Claire, our listeners can find links to everything of value we mentioned in today's episode by going to juststaycurious.com, clicking the podcast tab, and finding you in the archives, or just enter in Mary Claire Ashcroft in the search bar and the show notes will pop right up. Thank you for being so generous with your time and your story. As always, just stay curious.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and tell your friends about the show. For even more inspirational content, sign up for my newsletter at juststaycurious.com. You can get in touch with me by emailing me at Gillian@juststaycurious.com. Thanks. Talk to you soon.